Hi boys and girls, today we're going to continue with Who's Stealing the 12 Days of Christmas by Martha Freeman. And I have to make a correction. Yesterday when I read, I said that it was up to freezing and I said 35, that's only 32. I don't know what I was thinking. Sometimes I can't read and talk at the same time. All right, let's continue. Chapter 10. So remember we left off yesterday with an avian alert, all right? I counted twice and got the same number both times. There were supposed to be 6 geese a-laying. Since Friday, there had only been 5. Now there were 6 again. I felt like the newspaper said, baffled, but at the same time, I was mad at Yasmin for dragging me out here. I could have seen the Lee's yard from my bedroom window, and I would have been a whole lot warmer. So I acted like I didn't care. Maybe it got mixed up, I said. Maybe it thought it was time to migrate, fly south or whatever, and then it turned out not to be, so it came back. Mystery solved. Yasmin rolled her eyes. Alex, you know someone stole that bird, she said, and someone brought it back. Now the question is, I interrupted, the question is, how soon can we go back inside and play lousy Luigi Brothers? Yasmin punched my shoulder. The question is who? Not to mention why. I have an idea, I said. Bribe Jeremiah with a big peanut butter sandwich. Then he will play detective with you, but not me. Mom's the detective in my family. You can tell because she's got the stuff. Police handcuffs, police walkie-talkie, police mittens. We were standing in our front yard amongst the swimming swans with the lights at night, they looked magical. But in the morning, they looked like they were white plastic birds on a blue tarp. We kept arguing. Yasmin said if I had a shred of curiosity, I would want to help her solve the mystery. I said that there would be plenty of more mysteries to solve in the nice, warm summer. Meanwhile, Luau jumped the hedge between our house and the Lees. Then he started side-rubbing the birds. I think that before he ate them, he wanted to make friends with them. Finally, Luau stood up with his paws leaning on the goose's shoulders, if geese have shoulders. The goose was big, but lighter than Luau, and it fell on its side. I could see the black hollow under its feet. There was something else there, too. Yasmin was talking about brain rot, mine, not hers. I ignored her and walked toward the goose. I stepped over the hedge and didn't trip. Yasmin followed. I knelt by the goose. Inside the hollow was a piece of cardboard dangling by a plastic thread. It's just a price tag, Yasmin said. She tugged and it came away. Huh, that's strange. She gave it to me. It was a price tag, but not for a goose. It was for Ulysses S. Mouse, Civil War hero, $9.95. You don't have that one, do you? She asked. I shook my head. I sure wish I did. It's from last summer. They sold out right away. Now they're almost impossible to get. I wonder what its tag was doing inside a goose, Yasmin said. Does Toby Lee have it? Yasmin, I said. Toby Lee is a baby. Mice are not for babies. Sorry, Yasmin said. Like my mom, she does not get mice. Anyway, what would a mouse's tag be doing inside a goose? I wonder if was the goose that migrated, that left and came back, I said. Yasmin looked at the others. I can't tell, she said. They all look alike. But if it is the same one, then this is our first clue. Your first clue, I said. You're the detective, not me. Yasmin ignored me. Come on, we have work to do. Then she turned her back and walked toward the sidewalk, sure that I would follow her. I didn't, though. I stood there, fooling with the price tag and being mad. Finally, I stuck the plastic thread in my zipper pull so that the price tag hung down off my jacket. Yasmin kept walking. I thought about my earlobes. After they froze, would they fall off? Luau looked from me to Yasmin and finally trotted off to catch up with her. Come back here, you traitor, I said. Now I was standing by myself in the Lee's yard. I felt stupid, like a duck among the geese. What the heck, I thought. Maybe Yasmin was right. Maybe something else had happened, something really mysterious. I didn't want to care, but I did. So I gave in and jogged after her. I'd almost caught up when behind me I heard 3 sounds fast, a skid, a thud, and a choked voice saying, oof. I turned around. There on the pavement where Michael Jensen or Michael Jensen and his bicycle. Of course, his bike was the nicest in the neighborhood, fast and red with a plastic crate on the back for carrying junk. Are you all right? Yasmin was beside him in an instant, of course. You don't let Michael Jensen lie in the street. Even Luau seemed concerned. He circled once, then sat down and watched Michael, tail swishing. Michael sat up and shook his head. I'm okay. Yeah, he said, standing up. I don't know what happened. I was riding along, then I was on the ground. Michael shook his head again, then he yawned. Maybe you need more sleep, Yasmin said. Michael nodded. That's for sure. This paper route is killing me. He pulled his bike back up. Yasmin and I helped reattach the crate. I didn't know you had a paper route, Yasmin said. I'm just a sub, Michael said. The regular guy is on vacation. I have to get up at 4. It's tough. Michael swung his legs over the seat. Then he looked at me and he stared at me. What's that thing? He asked. Hanging from your zipper. I felt embarrassed. It's a tag, you know, a price tag. It's from a super macho military mouse, Yasmin said. Really? Michael said. I've never seen one before. My parents, you know. Do you mind if I look at it? It was in the goose, Yasmin explained. Maybe the one that was stolen from the Lees. You're kidding, Michael said. How weird is that? Alex and I were No, we're not, I said. Michael smiled. Hey, I thought I was the detective in the neighborhood. Wasn't it me that found the Lord last year? Would it be okay? I mean, would you mind giving me that, Alex? I'm investigating the birds too. It might be a clue. I did kind of mind. This was probably the closest I'd ever come to having my own Ulysses S. Mouse, but I couldn't think of a good reason to say no, especially to Michael Jensen, so I nodded okay. Michael put the tag in his pocket. Thanks, he said. Then he rode off toward his house, and Yasmin and I continued walking up the street. Luau followed. Michael is smart and all, Yasmin said, but I don't see why he should be the only detective around. I don't see why we can't solve this case ourselves. Faster than him, too. Oh, for sure, Yasmin, I said. Seriously, maybe you shouldn't have given him our clue. Why not? Were we going to dust it for fingerprints? Maybe your mom could have, Yasmin said. Mom doesn't even think that the birds are important, I said. She's totally working on Mega Menagerie. By now, we were at the Stones' house. Without having to say anything, we stopped, looked over the fence display, and counted. 1, 2, 3 calling birds. Still one missing. The Swansons' house was next door. We stopped there too and counted. 1, 2, 3 French hens. Wait a minute. 3? Yasmin looked at me. Another bird returned, she said. I shook my head. Totally weird, I said. Totally mysterious, she said. Come on. This time we both ran and both skidded to a stop in front of the Ryans' house. Yasmin looked up at the dogwood tree. Then she looked over at me. She was grinning. Voila, she said. It's French, and it means there it is. Yasmin pointed at the tree. I expected to see the replacement partridge. It was black because Mr. Ryan didn't have any gold spray paint. It looked like a crow, which must have been confusing to the real crows that hung out on our block. Anyway, voila, there was the plastic crow, but voila again, there was the old gold ducky was back, perched on the branch below. Yasmin shook her head. You know what Alice in Wonderland said? She asked me. I don't need to know, I said, because you are about to tell me. Yasmin grinned. You're right about that, bud. What Alice said was curiouser and curiouser. Chapter 11. While Yasmin and I puzzled over the latest ducky migration, Luau trotted to Bubs and did that bump thing with his paws. Pretty soon, Bub opened the door and Luau disappeared inside. Then Bub waved at Yasmin and me. He wants us to go over, I said. Yasmin is one of the neighbors who calls Bub's house an eyesore. Yasmin shook her head. I can't, she said. Come on, I said. You can't get in trouble for standing on his porch. Yasmin didn't look sure, but she still followed me across the driveway and up the steps. What are you kids doing out in the cold? Bub asked. Now that I had talked to him once, I felt braver. Yasmin and I are detecting, I said. I don't like it much, but she thinks it's great. The missing birds, he said. I saw this morning that the partridge was back. I could imagine the wheels turning in Yasmin's brain. She wanted to leave. She was afraid of getting in trouble, but the urge to detect was stronger. What time did you see it? She asked. Bub scratched his cheek. Let's see. I got up to start the soup about 6:45, but I wouldn't have looked out the window right away. I got the newspaper, turned on the TV, opened the curtains. That'd be when I saw the bird. The sky was getting light. Say 7 or 7:15? Yasmin looked at me. So whoever it was returned the bird really early or else in the middle of the night. In the dark, I agreed, after Professor Jensen turned off the 12-day lights at 11. Wouldn't you kids like to come inside? Bub asked. Soup will be ready soon. Chicken noodle. The soup smelled good. But I knew Yasmin wasn't allowed. We have to go home, I said, but thank you. Did you notice anything else suspicious? Yasmin asked. Well, now that you mention it, Bub said. My heart bumped. This could be important. What was it? Bub looked right and left like he didn't want anyone to overhear. A couple of real peculiar characters, he whispered, peering into my neighbor's yard. Really? Yasmin asked. When? Just now, Bub said. 2 kids. They looked suspiciously like Yasmin Pop and Alex Parakeet. Bub laughed and laughed. Yasmin looked disgusted, which is how I felt. We already know we didn't do it, I said. Bub was still chuckling. Sorry, he said. I can never resist a joke. It gets me into trouble sometimes. Besides, how do I know you didn't do it? Maybe all this detecting is part of your cover-up. Who would suspect the detective was the criminal? I didn't know how to answer that, but I didn't have to. A car pulled in the driveway. A young woman opened the door and climbed out of the driver's seat. She waved at Bub, then went around to the trunk and retrieved a picnic cooler. Bub moved to come down the stairs. Let me help you with that, he called. But she waved him away and hauled it up the stairs herself. She was small and it was big. Bub introduced us. My niece Jo, he said. She's a student at the college. Did you come for soup, she asked us. All my money goes for tuition. I'd starve without Bub. Is Al here yet? Bub shook his head. He's slow today. All the holiday deliveries, I guess. I don't see how anybody can stand Christmas. I hate it myself. Bub hated Christmas? That's weird. I love it. Well, mostly what I love is the presents. I wondered what was in the cooler. Heaps of presents for Bub, but that couldn't be. Didn't Jo just say her money went to tuition? Uncle Bub, Jo said it like a warning. We've been through this already. This year, your Christmas is going to be different. Now, she bounced up and down and hugged herself. Cold out here. Let's go inside. Is the soup ready? We have to go, Yasmin said. What about Luau? I asked. Bub leaned back so we could see into his front room. Sleeping, he said. But don't you worry. I'll wake him for the movie classic. It's the Maltese Falcon, right up his alley. Yasmin and I were at the foot of Bub's driveway when Al pulled up in his red and yellow truck. He owns Al's delivery service, and that means he brings a lot of Christmas presents. Most of the time on our street, he's going to Sakura's house. He's Mrs. Sakura's brother, which makes him Sophie and Byron's uncle. This is convenient because they get so many toys. I always love it when Al pulls up in front of our house. Got anything for me? I called. I've got something from the Lees, he said. From Decoy Decor. New goose, maybe? Yasmin and I cracked up. A 7th goose? Just what the neighborhood needed. And chapter 12. We were halfway down the block when Yasmin looked at her watch. Oh my gosh, my mom will kill me, she said. What? Why? Because Bub has cooties? Not that. I'm late to babysit Jeremiah. She ran a few steps, then turned and ran backward. Promise me one thing. Sure. What? Promise me you won't do any detecting without me. You won't even think about the case. Is it a promise? This was an easy one. No problem, Yasmin. I'm not going to think about anything this afternoon. I'm going to play Lousy Luigi till my brain turns to mush. Dad had left me a note. Back at 2, since it was past lunchtime, I poured barbecue chips into a bowl and got a can of Mountain Dew from the fridge. Then I settled into the sofa for the perfect vacation afternoon. Sloth and snacks. But it turned out Lousy Luigi wasn't that much fun. My hero guy kept getting vaporized by evil pond scum guys. It was my own fault. I couldn't concentrate. Even though I had promised Yasmin, I kept thinking about the missing birds. My mom is a good police detective, but the more I thought, the more she had to be wrong. She said stealing birds was a kid prank. But she also said kids are messy and that they always brag. That didn't describe whoever was doing this. Whoever it was had a plan. They took only birds, nothing else. They took only one bird at a time. They took a different bird from a different yard every time. They didn't mess anything else up. Oh, and they returned the birds. At least they had returned 3 of them. Did that mean they would return the calling bird too? Late in the afternoon, Mom called and talked to Dad. She had to work late downtown. There was new information in the mega menagerie mice burglary. She didn't have time to talk about it then. She was on her way to the library. The library, Dad said. Don't wait up, she said. Dad and I ate dinner. Fish sticks with macaroni and cheese. A Dad specialty. You know what, Alex, Dad said. Mom sounded happy when she called. I almost think she wishes there were more crimes. I guess some people are just born detectives. Not me, I said. I hate detecting. Dad looked surprised. How do you know you hate it? I explained how Yasmin and I'd spent the morning. I think detecting sounds like fun, Dad said. But be careful. What if there's a desperate bad guy out there? What if you run into him in some dark night? Dad, I said, what desperate bad guy do you know steals fake birds? Dad shrugged. I don't believe I know anyone who steals fake birds. Luau jumped into Mom's chair and poked his nose over the edge of the table. He sniffed. He purred. Fish sticks, how I love them. Shoo, said Dad. Get down, you. He tipped the chair to make Luau jump to the floor. Luau is always so cool. He acted like being tipped onto the floor was his own idea. He arched and stretched and wiped his face a couple of times. Then he came over and sat by me. I knew what he was hoping. Very sneaky, so Dad wouldn't notice. I shoved half a fish stick off my plate and then off the table. Luau crouched, pounced, and bit it in the neck. Not that fish sticks have necks. Luau, Dad had seen the whole thing. It was already dead. You buy them that way? Great, Dad, I said. There goes his self-esteem. Dad laughed. I don't think anything could damage his self-esteem. We cleared the table, then Dad asked me to help him clean up. It's valuable father-son bonding time, he said. You've got to cut it out with the parenting books, I said. And let you get ahead of me, said Dad. I flicked my towel at him. He held up a butter knife to defend himself. We danced around the kitchen in a fake fight. Then Dad grabbed the towel from me and waved it like a truce flag. I surrender, he cried. But you still have to help me clean up. I need a new dish towel, I said. This one's used. The one Dad handed me had a Christmas tree on it. Just seeing that tree made me smile. 3 days till Christmas. Then I thought of Bub and I asked my dad, did you know Bub hates Christmas? I know he's no fan of the 12 days display, Dad said. Why not? Can't say for sure. Thinks they're silly, maybe. And some people have bad memories of Christmas. From what I hear, Bub grew up pretty poor. It might have been a tough time of year for his family. Billy Jensen says Bub was in jail once, I said. Dad shook his head. I don't think so. As far as I know, he's just a big, loud, old guy who likes to make soup. No crime in that. I remembered something else about Bub. What does he keep in his bathtub, I asked. The bathtub, Dad laughed. No idea. Why? Whatever it is, Luau wants it, I said. That's why he spends so much time over there. Why not ask Luau, Dad said. I tried, I said, but he's not talking. That night, I went to sleep early. I guess I hadn't adjusted to vacation time zone. Next thing I knew, Luau was walking back and forth across my belly. I rolled over, but he meowed. I pulled the covers over my head. He started batting things off my bedside table. The alarm clock, my rock collection, 2 books. Would you cut it out and just go to sleep? But instead, he jumped from the bed to the windowsill. I thought of how he'd been acting lately. Luau, ace detective. Was he trying to tell me something now? I pushed back the cover, sat up, and looked out my window. It was after 11, so the display lights were off, but I could just make out the geese in the Lee's yard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no problem. But as I stared, I saw something move. Was it a shadow? But hadn't it looked kind of, solid? Luau touched his nose to the glass. Had he seen something too? Is it not going? Oh, sorry. Was it a shadow? But hadn't it looked kind of solid? Luau touched his nose to the glass. Had he seen it too? Something more than a shadow? I got out of bed, put my face against the window, and cupped my hands around my eyes to see better. There it was, by the hedge between the Lees' yard and ours. It wasn't so shadowy this time. It had a definite kind of person quality, a small person quality. A kid? Whatever it was, it seemed to be crouching by the hedge. And was it carrying something? It looked like it, and whatever it was moving away. Soon, I wouldn't be able to see it from my window. Luau meowed again. Okay, I'll go. I slid my slippers on and grabbed my bathrobe off the hook. I ran down the stairs. I opened the front door. A few dandruffy snowflakes floated in on the freezing air. I barely noticed. I was focused on the black shape running out of our yard, past the swimming swans, toward the sidewalk. It was carrying something. I couldn't see what, but somehow I knew. To make sure, I counted. Yup, our 7 swans were only 6. And that's where we're going to stop for today. Somebody just came in and stole one of the swans right out of Alex's yard. Let's find out tomorrow what happens next. Thanks for listening.